Thank you for auditing the Always Positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's not only going to be reviewing From a Bird's Eye View, the new album by Cordae, but I'm also going to be doing something of an exploration, something of a video essay into how Cordae is received and why he is received that way. First of all, I should say, I'm not really qualified to make this kind of assessment, but I think you'll find this video interesting anyway. I say I'm not qualified because, truthfully, I had never heard of Cordae until 2 weeks ago when his album came out. Now, I do this channel, I try to pay attention, but I do have a full-time job as a professor. This channel is just a hobby I picked up in the lobby, so I'd never heard of Cordae. Okay, so he's totally new to me until, I think last couple Sundays ago, my son said, "Hey Dad, my friends want you to review Cordae." So already, that's interesting to me. Right? That means that, at least to the young people who are friends of my son, this is an interesting artist. This week has been kind of slow. It's actually been a slow couple weeks. Kind of a slow couple weeks on my channel, by the way. My views are like tanking. My analytics are going down. So if you could smash the like bucket, even if you don't like this video, if you could subscribe if you haven't already, that'd be awesome. Leave a comment. You can just leave a comment about like, what's your favorite citrus fruit? That would help me out. Grapefruit, by the way, for me. So like I was trying to think about like what should I review next, and it was sort of a confluence of things. I had this in the back of my head that my friends, my son's friends said it was good. I listened to it a couple weeks ago. It didn't really grab me, so I didn't want to review it. But then when I was trying to think what should I do for my big weekend review, and right there, number one most popular album currently on Tidal, Certified Lover Boy. Okay, I've already covered Certified Lover Boy, but number two was From a Bird's Eye View by Cordae. And I know a lot of people are jumping ship on Spotify now. I never jumped on that ship. I've never subscribed to Spotify. I've never liked Spotify. Tidal gives more money. Tidal was started by Kanye, somewhat. So I've always supported Tidal. And one of the things I like about it is that it has this sort of what's hot now. And in general, the Tidal subscriber base is a little more tilted towards hip-hop. So it's helped me to kind of keep my finger on the pulse, sort of unofficially, of what's important. But right next to Cordae was Gunna. And so, my son's also been talking to me about Pushin' P and what does that mean. So I kind of had this war going on in my head. Should I review Gunna? Should I review Cordae? To that, I brought it to my students. And I asked my students, hey, what should I review? And they all said Cordae, that there's more there and it's more interesting. Now, the number one reason why I didn't want to review Cordae has nothing to do with Cordae. For some reason, I just don't like his name. The reason is that it reminds me of the way the singer T-Pain says the word shorty. Shorty! So every time I see the name Cordae, I just get a T-Pain. Cordae! That's no reason not to review him. A brief look at the producers on this album is another reason not to review it. Someone named Kid Culture did most of the producing. He's fine, but he's also partly responsible for Yummy by Justin Bieber. That is a strike against you. Probably the number one reason that I didn't want to review it was just when I listened to it, it sort of made me feel old. Like I felt like it was like too pop and not pop enough. It was sort of not quite like shocking like, Playboy Cardi, nor was it kind of reassuring and reminding me of the old school like Griselda. It was a weird sort of middle ground, mixed in with a sort of Gen Z optimism and feeling like you can change the world that made me feel kind of old and out of it when I listened to it. Now, what I've discovered is that actually, this is the way he is perceived of by many people. So that same son of mine, who recommended I review this, had band practice. He has a band, they're quite good. Just getting started, very, very loud. So I had to wait to do this video. You'll notice the light is fading. I used the sun as my ring light, and it's starting to set. So by the end of this video, I may be in darkness. But while he's playing, I can't even listen to the music because it's so loud. Despite all of his rage, he's still just a rat in a cage. That's what they were playing quite a bit. And so I just did some research on Cordae. And the main thing that you discover is on YouTube, there's all these videos about why people don't like him. Take, for instance, a video by Hip Hop Madness, a channel I like, has a whole video about why does hip hop not respect Cordae, ultimately comparing him to Logic and Chance the Rapper. I still stand behind Chance the Rapper's last album. I didn't think it was that bad, but kind of interesting. Sean C., another YouTube commentator who I like a lot, really blasts into him. But for that feeling that I had, remember how I was saying that like I couldn't quite figure out where he was, like he's sort of in between these things? Sean C just blasts him, mainly for sounding like J. Cole or for trying to be in J. Cole's lane, but that expressing how mediocre he is and how he, and this is, I think Sean C is very underrated. I mean, he has a lot of subscribers, 10 times as many as I do at least, if not 20 times or 100 times more. But still, that he gets a pass for being passable. That's a Sean C line. That's a great line. It's an interesting way. And he says, being a good rapper is not a personality. So to a certain extent, Cordae is being punished for the fact that he is perceived of positively for not being a trap rapper, for not being a melodic pop rapper, but for being a rapper's rapper. Joe Budden made some small comments, again, tying into this J. Cole comparison and basically saying it does the exact same thing as a J. Cole album. Fantano gave it muted praise, saying how he still hasn't found a consistent voice. We're all circling around a three-letter word, by the way. If you've seen the title of this video, you know what that three-letter word is. But Fantano explains how he hasn't quite found his consistent voice. Hello Yassine has a whole thing about how he's been overhyped, and that's part of the other issue. Apparently, this guy, who I'd never heard of, I didn't notice on that Super Bowl commercial last year, has been so overhyped and so praised as a potential future of conscious hip-hop and future of rap for rap's sake, that there wasn't enough, that there was like support from people who loved hip-hop, but like not hip-hop fans. As Hello Yassine said, there's no Cordae stans. DJ Academics, who praises him at the same time, talks about his low sales, about how there's no story behind, which goes all the way full circle. You know, like words like, you know, he's being accused of being corny, being kind of a suck up to the old heads because he talks about Nas and you know, Big L and sort of old school hip hop. But it all kind of circles around to what my son said when I asked him, well, do you like Cordae? And my son said, yeah, he's mid. Those are the three letters. Mid. M-I-D. And I think we could say that Cordae, in a way, I don't mean to be rapping. We could say in a way that Cordae today really is sort of mid for better and worse. Like that's his greatest flaw and his greatest attribute. I'm going to get into it. And I do like this album. This is not a video saying what I think is wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with Cordae. I think this is a great album. But in a lot of ways, he also reminds me a little bit of Alex Rodriguez, the baseball player, who played alongside Derek Jeter. And there's a famous thing where no matter how good Alex Rodriguez was, no one liked him as much as Derek Jeter. And like he would try so hard and he like worked harder and he thought more and he just did everything. But there's just some like coolness, something not there, something, despite his performance, something was kind of mid about Alex Rodriguez. Now I had so much time that while I was lesson planning for tomorrow, working on my French 1 class, I was even able to watch Cordae's interview with the Breakfast Club. And you know, it's true. Like even in interviews, the way that he comes across is like smart, but not like scary smart. And like street, but he's not trying to come across as like a gangster. It's like, it's hard to really place him. And even his look is sort of baby-faced, but then he also, you know, has the sort of the dyed hair as well. It's a lot of mixture of signals. But he said a lot of interesting things, you know, about like turning trauma into music and that's part of the domain of African Americans and how much he would prefer to not have, he'd much prefer to have his friends than have all this music. But I'm here to say, I get it. I understand these mid opinions because that was my initial opinion as well. But I'm going to make an argument that he's not mid, that he's actually quite good. And I'm going to emphasize this or explain this primarily by talking about the sort of, what I think are the three secrets of Cordae. The three secrets that I think make him go beyond just being mid. Before getting to the first secret, let's talk about the album cover. You know, it's a picture of him looking at a painting. It's very emblematic of the album itself, where it's sort of deep but sort of not. It's funny because my big weekend video next weekend is going to be Ants from Up Here, the Black Country New Road album, and then here's a bird's eye view. It's a similar kind of concept of being kind of far away. He's like looking at a painting while being in a painting. It's sort of like a Rene Magritte kind of situation here, while at the same time he's very consciously wearing Puma shoes, because I learned that he is a Puma brand ambassador. There's one thing about being a Gen Xer, watching all these Zoomers and Zillennials becoming artists, is whenever I see someone be a shill like that, it kind of hurts me. Like, I feel. But what's interesting is he calls this album From a Bird's Eye View. It's not really. It's actually a pretty street level. A lot of this is about personal experience. It's about friends that he's lost, either to murder or to the prison system. I think it actually deserves a better title than From a Street View. Apparently, he's a college dropout from Towson College. Weirdly enough, my great-great-grandmother was part of the Towson family. So I've always thought it was weird that, like, my grandmother's mother has a town named after her. There you go. But you want to know the first secret. The first secret, I think, is not much of a secret, but that he was raised on old school hip-hop. According to his biography, whenever he'll talk, he'll discuss how through YouTube and the influence of his father, I can't tell which one he credits more, but he discovered all those old hip-hop artists. And quite often, all the way throughout this album, we'll get a very specific old school flow and, even better, sort of old school thematics and a way of constructing an album. The production all the way through, I'd say, is the biggest flaw of this album. I mean, I guess he gets a lot of credit for picking beats in a similar way that J. Cole does. But based on what I've heard of J. Cole does better, or has better to work with. It's solid production, but for the most part, it's not spectacular. And I mean, with his rapping style, I think it's just not flashy enough. He very clearly has inspiration from older rappers. He's very dynamic with his flows. He's very good with bars. He has meaningful lyrics. He's like flashy without being flashy. He's political without being political. He's street without being street. He is just Mr. Medium, Mr. Mid, just 98 miles per hour fastball right down the center. In a way, he actually reminds me of my Thunderground Thursday review recently of Chez Noir's music, where she has a similar kind of approach to topics, where it's not so focused on the sort of common tropes of modern hip hop, a little bit more general. The second secret to his music, and I've never seen anyone reference this, he is one of the best chorus writers in hip hop history. Now, I'm saying that because most hip hop choruses are not good. They're just not. I mean, hip hop choruses are usually kind of repetitive and not that interesting. You listen to hip hop for verses. You don't listen to them for choruses. But what he does is he writes really good choruses that tie into the larger themes of the entire album. They become sort of explicitly stated, and just listen to his choruses. They're really good. They work. And they're not sing-songy choruses. They're not like, hey, dirty, baby, I got you money. There's none of that. Okay, I mean, that's a great chorus, but you know what I mean, right? Like, he's not trying to write hooks in his chorus. He's using them the way rock and roll singers use them, to sort of crystallize the theme of the song and put it in something that's repeated many times. This is genuine desire for interaction from you. Like, what other rap artists do great choruses? But I'm sure I'm missing them. I have never actually thought about it until I listened to this album. I'd say the third secret is that he's from Maryland. Maryland, North Carolina, DC, Virginia. There's the middle of the country, rap artists have this great ability to be northern rappers when it suits them and southern rappers when they feel like it. They can kind of switch codes. And I think that's a real strength that we hear in the way he's able to switch flows. And at times he sounds northern, at times he sounds southern. Which again makes him Mr. Middleman. Apparently he owns his own label, and apparently he has no tattoos. So if for no other reason, I'm not into self-harm, so I've never been big into tattoos. I think that's an interesting idea of a rapper not having tattoos going so far against the grain. It's not really a secret, but I'd say the album's very well sequenced, and thank God there is no DAS. This album does not suffer from DAS. That's called Drake album syndrome, where it's twice as long as it needs to be, so you get all those stream monies. And this whole sequencing and the good pacing of the album ties right into... I'm just going to start. Here we go. The first 2 tracks are awesome. Comes right out of the gate, super strong. Starts off with Shiloh's intro. Appears to be recorded off a telephone call with someone in jail, someone who he refers to as his little brother, not by blood, but by sort of family and raising. And I hate that. Okay, this is like a thing that hip-hop reviewers do all the time, you know, like, you can't get bodied on your own album. And, you know, like Joe Budden, like, went after Jay Electronica for having Jay-Z all over his album and everything. And even on this album, the guys on Joe Budden were talking about how Eminem's verse kind of, like, outdid Cordae's verse on the Eminem song Coming Later. But the best verse on the whole album is from Shiloh. His opening verse is just great. It's coming from jail. It's someone telling about how he got to jail. And I just want to emphasize this. I've been thinking about this a lot, about the prevalence of jail in hip-hop. It's just a reminder that every single rap song that references somebody in jail is an indication of the failure of the American system. It may seem like it's someone trying to get credit or be tough or reflect the life of the streets, but as Americans, which statistically 70% of my viewers are, that's our failure. That Shiloh's in jail is our failure as a society on multiple different levels. It is a personal failure on his part too. But in the context of listening to it in this music, it's our failure. And I like it. I don't like our failure. I really like this verse because he presents himself not as that likable of a guy, but he just explains it. You know, he learned how to use a gun when he was 9. He talked about becoming a cocaine cowboy like Michael Irvin at 13. Michael Irvin, the football player on the Cowboys, who also did a lot of cocaine. Not getting beaten up by the cops at 17 and going to jail at 18. And it's just all this very sad story. And according to Cordae, they both came up together. And essentially, it's, 2 different paths. And Cordae made it, and Shiloh didn't. But here is Cordae featuring his friend, his brother on the track. This is great. Like, hey, Sean C. and everybody else who's dumping on this album. I get it. But this is awesome. This is, really good. And that leads right into Jean-Michel, the next song, which has a great, cool, very simple drum beat, like a drum fill to open up. Kind of reminds me a little bit like the opening of Brick House by the Commodores. Cool, kind of gentle beat, kind of a continuation of the beat from the previous song, kind of haunting 2 piano notes. Hard-working bass here, spacey West Coast keyboards. It's co-produced by Raphael Saadiq, who is what is my favorite name ever since You God. I believe it was on the song It's Yours. Said the words super freak physique like Raphael Saadiq. I didn't know who Raphael Saadiq was. Saadiq, not Saadiq. I didn't know who he was, but I just like super freak physique like Raphael Saadiq. I think Raphael Saadiq, a great R&B singer, I think his influence can be found here, and just very introspective. I'm choosing this as a stamp, as my example song that I want you to listen to, because I think it's the best example of his introspective flow. Haunted by these goals that I'm trying to accomplish. Such an overthinker. I'm so self-reflective. God willing, these parables will go and sell some records. Politicians out here lying, trying to sell a message. Right? So it's kind of like a little bit of politics, a little bit of self-reflection, talking about his ambition. You lust for power too much and it's getting worse. The more you get, the more you'll desire. You can't quench your thirst of a conqueror. Ask Alex, ask Christopher. Now I hear people calling him corny. I get that. I almost titled this album Cordae or Cornet. But no, we need to talk about the lust for power. This is what I'm talking about. It's kind of like old school tendencies. Like rappers in the old school, even the great ones, can sometimes be, by today's standards, kind of corny, kind of like right on the nose, right down the center. And I think that's what we see here. He's talking about Alexander the Great and Christopher Columbus. That's awesome. And it's true. And he's putting himself forward as not this kind of conqueror. Now, F your art critic, can't decide what my picture's worth, I just know it's painted well. And that's why he's calling it Jean-Michel after Basquiat, I assume, the great artist. And, he's just starting off and defending himself and explaining his music. And really, I like this, because none of us, music critics on YouTube or the internet or on Instagram or whatever, can decide what his picture is worth. He just knows that it's painted well. Even that appears to almost be a description of, he's not saying I know that I'm mid, but it's an interesting idea that he's just saying whatever you say, I know it's good. And it is. It's a very good album. And this song really exemplifies it. It's not my favorite song on the album. I'll get to my favorite song soon. Spoiler, it's the final song on the album. The next song is called Super, and this kind of undercuts the last song, because this is like bragging about himself. The thing is, like, the more I listen to the song, the more I like it. I heard a lot of people say that the problem with him is he doesn't have any hits. I think this should be a hit. I mean, his flow here is, I don't hear J. Cole, I hear Kanye. I hear Kanye all over this, very good kind of Kanye flow. He makes a shout out to Coca-Cola. I guess he did an ad for Coca-Cola. Again, Generation Xer in me thinks that's not cool. But I really like this first verse, this ain't real life, no acting in it, all these rap, they be Brad Pittin', every little thing I do is mad different, got my little cousin playing badminton. I just, when describing what wealth is, I love it when people are able to describe wealth in abstract terms that are real. So, like, true wealth is having your cousins play badminton. Right? Like, badminton is like it's not quite a luxury sport, but it's a leisure sport. So, like, getting your cousins to play badminton, like, that actually expresses more than, like, I got the Ventador, and I got the Marceliago, and I got the Bottega Ventada. Okay, I don't know why I'm going with all luxury Italian brands. But there's just something about that. I love that line. And again, he talks about buying a Birkin bag, but it's not for a woman that he's in love with or that he's sleeping with. It's for his aunt. And every once in a while, he just peppers in a little bit of political commentary. I'm rich and black, so they hate me in America. I enter the game, and I'm here to change it. I am interested. Like, will he change it? He talks a lot about his longevity on this album. And I hope that he is, like, going to last a long time, because what he does is good. It's just, it's hard to figure out, like, how well received it will be. Sorry, dog's barking. I do like, he has a good kind of, like, punchline here. Your peace of mind is worth $1.50. That's just a good line. I like that. I hate people when they keep talking about their peace of mind. Like, that's not my job. Isn't to make sure that you are at peace, that in your mind. Most of the time, people are looking for peace of mind. They just want to be complacent. I agree with you, Cordae. Cordae, I agree with you that peace of mind is overrated. And then the whole kind of Yeezus part at the end, very Kanye at the end. I should also mention, he does mention a couple times on the album that he dropped YBN from his name. I guess his name used to be YBN, which was some network he was a member of. That's another thing. I'm an old guy, so all these, like, rap collectives, I just missed it. It's like, I don't understand the ASAPs and the YBNs and the NBAs. Like, I know, I sound so old and so out of it. I gotta be me. I am old and out of it. So I appreciate that he took off YBN on there, because I didn't really understand what that was, and it just kind of confused me. And I'm an old man. I need to understand the hippin' and the hoppin' from just the names. Next song is called Mama's Hood, produced by Beat Butcher. Very good producer, kind of soft jazz, very bass driven. This is a good example where he sounds a lot more southern, like doubling his voices. I hear echoes of Outkast here. Kind of very fast style in the third verse. Feeling so raw, paint pictures so vivid. I do wish that there was more painting imagery in the album. This is like the frustration that I have with him, where he has, like, some of these interesting ideas, like some political stuff, but doesn't go far enough. Some references to himself as a painter, but doesn't go quite far enough. But I like it. And then at the end, he talks about a friend who died in a shootout, and then he also refers to how that friend was the first person to get money as a teenager. I think there's a very clear connection between them. Want From Me is the next song, and what I want from Cordae is to not have songs like this. Yikes. I don't like this. I don't know. It's a women are like this, men are like this song, yin yang, genders, horse hockey. I'm just not a fan. I mean, it's a fun line, there's no Uncle Phil without there's no Uncle Phil without Aunt Viv, Sometimes I feel like Russell Wilson, other days I'm Rick James. Or, you know what? I like that line. That's the one line. Other than that, I could do without this song, but sometimes I'm Russell Wilson, other days I'm Rick James. That's a good way to describe the sort of, like, domestic piece of, Mr. Unlimited Russell Wilson, and I'm Rick James. Itch. Next song is called Today by Gunna. Weird kind of oboe beat, kind of boring trap drums and bass, but I kind of a boring chorus as well, a little over repeated. But turns out I like Gunna. I like him on here. I guess maybe I'll listen to that album. I can't quite tell. Maybe next week will be a little bit more fruitful for music for me to review. But kind of laid back, auto-tuning, but he's not really mumbling. The thing that Gunna has that Cordae doesn't appear to have is that kind of charisma that makes you want to listen to him. Coming up next is Shiloh's Interlude, which is just setting up the opening thing. It's just the call from jail, the collect call information. I think it's important to have this stuff, because I'm lucky, right? If you were born in America and you don't have any relatives in jail or people you care about in jail, that's a function of luck, of birth. It's not a function of virtue. It's a function of luck, right? So me having to hear, boy, imagine if like my buddy Keith from high school, like instead of like just being a cool dude who worked at a coffee shop and now is doing some freelance, I don't know, technical writing or whatever. What if instead he had a life on the streets and he was doing a 35-year bid? In order to talk to Keith, I had to hear, welcome to the upstate New York or whatever, prison service. Press 0 to accept this call. I do think it's important to have it on there to remind everybody of this reality that is the scourge of our country, that is the biggest shame in our country. The prison industrial system is the biggest shame in our country. But no one does anything about it. Getting depressed. And the lights going. It was terrible. I mean, my son's band sounded good. But I was like, get out of the house. Next song is called C. Carter, which is short for Coach Carter. A movie about like a coach of some sport. I didn't see it. I'm too old to have seen Coach Carter. I don't even know who starred in it, but it seemed like it was an okay movie. You can tell me that in the comments if you want. How's that for interaction? Kind of a smooth and satisfying beat, cool kind of growling keyboards underneath. This is one of the better tracks on the album, certainly compared to today and certainly compared to what we want. Kind of a stilted beat, which is nice. This is what I'm talking about, like the old school nature of Cordae. This is one of these, I remember reading Word Up magazine. It's one of these, I remember being poor. I remember what it used to be like. I remember the hungry days. Being broke can make you try harder. I like this theme. It's a theme in hip hop, which used to be on like almost every rapper would have some song about how I made it and how it used to be, which I like quite a bit. Listen to these proverbs, the odd words we call rap music. They took me all across the globe, watch people react to it. Figments of imagination, couldn't fathom elation, ain't describable with words, so I'll go illustrate it. Illustrious rhyming career for which my rhymes are revered. Clear signs of alignment shows my timing is near. Hey, I get it. People who don't like it, but those are good lines. Like, it's good, it's solid, it's interesting. He's talking about like the odd words that we call rap music. He's talking about the power of the music. I don't know. I think people are too cynical. I think that's it too. Like it's so much easier to like love something or hate something, but just to like have a solid appreciation for something that's well done and good, that's maybe a art that we need to get better at. Next song is called Sinister, featuring Lil Wayne, produced by Hit Boy, of course. Just as a beat, the best beat on the album. Very kind of hard, low bass, ringing sounds. I like Cordae's verse. Don't follow trends. I'm a time bomb. I really like the chorus. Yeah, all right. My flow sinister. This ain't rap music. The straight literature. Small-minded. All your ideas miniature. They tend to hate on you when they can't get rid of you. A good example of this kind of verse that he talks about, where he's defending himself, explaining himself, while also aggrandizing himself. A very solid Lil Wayne verse. I know when Lil Wayne isn't phoning it in, right? But even when Lil Wayne is phoning it in, which is kind of how it feels here, it's still so good that it's hard to believe it's phoning in. It's like when he's guest appearing, he has like two speeds. He has like 5th gear and 6th gear. He never does like a featuring where you're like, so he's only in 5th gear here, which still, I guess, is the reason why he's just so great. Chronicles featuring her and Lil Durk. Like I really hated on that other kind of softer song, but this one I like a little bit more. It's kind of a TLC sounding beat, kind of a makeup song, but Her is really nice. HER. I like the themes. Love is no miracle and lust is no thing. It's an interesting idea that trust is what matters, not love or lust. These are interesting concepts that are well enunciated and very clearly explained in a concise song, like through the chorus and through the verses. So, okay, this guy is not the next Kendrick or necessarily the next J. Cole, but he's still doing things that are interesting. Why all the hate? Durk is kind of boring on this song. I don't know. It's kind of like I'm a bad boy, but women love me anyways. Next song, Champagne Glasses, featuring Freddie Gibbs and Stevie Wonder. First of all, Freddie Gibbs and Stevie Wonder, that's cool. like you want a tribute to great musicianship across many generations of completely different styles and approaches. You can't do much better than Freddie Gibbs and Stevie Wonder. It's kind of a weak beat though. Freddie Gibbs is not at his sharpest. I like the chorus. Again, he talks about how money doesn't solve his problems, about how he was in handcuffs when he was 15. And then the beat break and Stevie Wonder coming on playing harmonica. It's just really sweet. And it's nice thinking about Stevie Wonder playing harmonica. It's bizarre. When I hear Stevie Wonder playing harmonica, I know he's like 80, right? I know he's old. But I see him as a kid. I see him as a kid, like in those old black and white videos playing harmonica. Do you do that too? I do that. The next song is the best song on the album, Westlake High. You know what? This beat, I'm going to give it up to Kid Culture. This is even better than the Hit Boy beat. It's got this cool cut-up sample. It's kind of warbled, and then this cool kind of like stinging drum beat. And the lyrics are probably the best on here. He's thinking about his past. If only Father Time had the patience of Mother Nature. Not a bad line. If only I was wiser when I first discovered paper. Another good line. If only Martin Luther never stayed at the Lorraine Hotel, he'd still be alive and well. Quick side note here. I do this every once in a while on the channel. If you are not from America and you want to visit America, the first place you should go is Memphis, Tennessee. Whatever you do, don't go to San Francisco. That's a rookie European mistake. Don't go to San Francisco. Don't go to Boston. I'm from Boston. Don't go to Boston. Unless, you're really excited about the Revolutionary War and clam chowder. Both great things. Even New York is a bit hard to visit. But go to Memphis. You really want to see the real America? You go to Memphis. And I'll tell you why. Because you can go to the Civil Rights Museum, which is in the Lorraine Hotel, which is where Martin Luther King was murdered. So you walk up on this hotel, and you literally break down in tears. I break down in tears. I went there, I just started crying. I thought about the death and the loss, and it looks exactly like in the pictures with Jackson pointing out over that way, And in order to get to the Civil Rights Museum, you have to take Nathan Bedford Forrest Highway, the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. That is America for you. The complexity, the racism, the overt racism, the systematic racism, the efforts towards equality, the efforts towards peace. It's amazing. Now, I don't think that MLK would still be alive today. I think if he hadn't been killed that day, he would have been killed later, of course, because he had moved on from just talking about race issues to talking about class issues, which is why I think he was killed in the first place. But just another reminder about Martin Luther King. Remember how everyone felt so bad about Betty White dying? Betty White was 7 years older than Martin Luther King. That is how much we lost of Martin Luther King's life. Anyways, an interesting line, a powerful line. It gets you thinking about all these bigger things. And then it's tied in. He ends the whole thing talking about his grandmother. It feels intergenerational. He's making a call back to previous generations. And the whole thing is just around this great beat, and he's talking about his high school, and so it does all these things all together. It's like personal, and it is it is like a street view and a bird's eye view, and it all works together. Parables. Okay, so then the album's over, and then there's 2 bonus tracks. Parables, which is a remix featuring Eminem. The whole thing's about telling stories, and I like Cordae's verse. Eminem's verse though is, he just changes flow. He has all this precision. He just goes on and on. I mean, he starts off talking about how bad he wanted 5 mics. His dream was to be an unsigned hype. He has always like, he has kind of funny, corny lines like, I'm gorier than Eva Long, like Eva Longoria. If you're a baseball fan, I guess you could say I'm gorier than Evan Long. But then it's just a great end where he's talking about how he's already talked about things. It's kind of funny that Eminem's sort of in this place where it's like, I already told you about government cheese. I told you about being kicked out in 20 degrees, no money to eat, about the thrift stores and being piss poor and the Christmases mod gifts for us when bro had discovered that she was wrapping ish around the house and had to stick it under the tree. This whole kind of sort of tired way of talking about his life. But it's kind of a reminder of why Cordae is in the position he's in, that people like Nas, people like Eminem, like him enough that they feature him and support him, and then people who haven't heard of him or who haven't decided that they like him react negatively to that. It's a very complicated thing. The Cordae phenomena is interesting. Like, how can you be so hated while being so objectively good? I don't know. You could be hated because songs like Gifted, kind of a weak ending to the whole thing. It's fine, kind of a pop attempt. I like the reference to Mos Def, like Black Star. It's kind of funny. Good chorus, but Roddy Ricch is kind of boring. It's a weak flex. It's a weak flex saying that you're gifted. You know, if you're gifted, that's from birth. You know, it's better to say you're hardworking or you're talented. So there's my review. These are my Patreons. Hopefully it's not too dark. You can see them. So these are my EPs. So what I do is I take money that they give me and I buy albums with it. Now I'm not gonna buy this album. I did like it, but I'm not gonna buy it. But I'm gonna buy some other music, thanks to the support that they give me. So tell me, like what do you think about Cordae? Like, where are you on this debate? Is it fair what he's going through? He's not like arrogant. He's not a jerk. He's not putting other people down. He's not even really bragging about himself that much. I just feel bad for him because he's so good. All right. Until next time, there's the camera.